By no means is Colombia known for roller coasters. South America as a whole tends to be light on theme parks. However, Colombia's capital city of Bogota happens to be home to 2 theme parks with 6 roller coasters split between the 2. This includes an Aero Corkscrew, a really cool indoor Pinfari, and new for 2023, a Skyrocket 2, the former zombie ride from Bosque Magico in Mexico. It is now Colombia's tallest roller coaster. I had the opportunity to experience both of these parks earlier this year. We spent some time in Bogota because we are flying down to Colombia to visit Parque del Cafe, which was a short 30-minute flight from Bogota. That park is incredible and should absolutely be your top priority when visiting. But I still had a nice time checking out these 2 parks, so in this video I'm going to talk about my experiences at each of them. So let's first start off with Salitre Magico. This is about 5 miles away from the main airport in Bogota, and so with traffic, maybe a 20-minute drive. It's very much a city park, and there's a lot more to do here than just the theme park. There's an indoor water park, a children's museum, a Cirque du Soleil, which literally shares a parking lot with Salitre Magico, so clearly a popular hangout spot in Bogota. Admission to Salitre Magico ended up totaling about $17 a person, so really cheap. If you're visiting from the US, the exchange rate for Colombia is definitely in your favor. There's 2 entrances into the park. I believe that we entered through the smaller of the 2. When we went to get our tickets, they sell upcharges for a couple other attractions in the park that are not included with your general admission. This includes the go-karts, bumper cars, weirdly enough, and a haunted house called Castillo del Terror. We did not do any of these attractions. We almost did Castillo del Terror, but we encountered some issues later on that prevented us from doing it. But when we first walked in, our overall impression was relatively underwhelming. The park doesn't feel warm or welcoming. It's just a bunch of rides slapped down on a big old slab of concrete. The pathways are ugly. There's like next to no landscaping. Many attractions were just not open, including what is arguably the most iconic thing about this park, which is a massive Avianca 727 airplane parked right next to a Ferris wheel. Like, they have a freaking plane here just sitting in the park that you can walk in and check out, except it was closed when we were there. Still cool to look at. I have no idea why it's there or what is inside, but definitely bizarre to see. I've never seen something like that at a theme park before. Let's talk about the 3 roller coasters that were there at the time of my visit. So this excludes their new Skyrocket 2, which is called Draco the Flying Beast. So first we have Magnus. This was originally a relocation from South Carolina. The park was open from 1948 to 2006 before closing. The Corkscrew operated there until 1999, and then it was sent down to Bogota in 2000. And for a ride that's been there for over 20 years, it's in great condition. Magnus recently received a repaint and it was looking sharp. The ride is nothing to shout at though, just a drop and 2 inversions. Nothing really notable, but it's still nice that it's here. Unfortunately, it was on 1 train though, and you had 1 operator doing the job of both checking restraints and dispatching. So as you can imagine, operations were not great. In fact, I would say most attractions here only had 1 operator. So even though the park was pretty quiet when we went, we still had to wait longer than we would have liked. But next up is their Wacky Worm, Gusano Loco. We tried to ride this, but then we found out there is a height restriction. They enforced that kids can only ride this ride, no adults. So sorry, coaster nerds, you will not be getting this credit. And then finally, we have Double Loop. This is a Soquette looping coaster that used to operate at Seabreeze in New York. It was called Quantum Loop. It opened here in 2004, so we're coming up on 20 years of being located at this park. And this thing was janky. The inversions were just so tight and the trains were even tighter. This is a really bizarre restraint setup, not comfortable to the average person. We did it once, about half our group hated it, the other half thought it was okay. Definitely not the best. But now that they have a Skyrocket 2, I imagine that is going to be the best roller coaster at this park. Adding that is a very good step in the right direction, even though it is yet another relocation. For a park that hadn't debuted a new roller coaster since 2004, this was long overdue. But now that they've done that, I think they definitely need to spend some money sprucing this place up. Walking around the park just felt very bare and lackluster. Not really a fun or lively vibe. But it does have some nice views from the top of the rides. They have a little drop tower here that was kind of fun. There's a mirror maze called Crystal Palace. This top spin was kind of wild. It holds riders forwards and then flips them upside down 4 times in a row, and that's just messed up. And then finally, there's this weird deep sea ancient creature museum walkthrough thing that was right by the front entrance when we walked in. A tour guide took us to these different rooms and you see various extinct creatures. It was bizarre. But that pretty much concludes Salitre Magico. We didn't stay here for too long. Pretty much all the attractions were one and done. Of the theme parks that I've visited in Central and South South America, this is probably my least favorite. Ironically though, it is one of the ones that I'm more likely to go back to because it's in a really good central location, again, right near the airport in a major city, and because they just got a new roller coaster. I could see myself coming back here one day. So let's drive about 8 miles southwest to Mundo Aventura. With Bogota traffic, that could take anywhere between 15 and 45 minutes to get there, and you'll enter what is definitely the nicest park in Bogota. Unlike Salitre Magico, this one is very well landscaped, and it also happens to have 2 entrances, which is fun. This park is free to enter and you pay per ride. So we got a wristband so that we could do whatever attractions we wanted. It was not expensive. They don't have quite as many roller coasters, only 2 here, Quantum and then this plus-sized Wacky Worm. And unfortunately for us, this Wacky Worm was closed during our visit, but honestly, I don't think we would have been able to get on it anyways. I think they had the same policy as Salitre Magico, so only kids can do the Wacky Worm. But let's talk about Quantum. So this is an enclosed Zyklon galaxy with some great theming, but unfortunately really bad capacity. This line moved so slow. We actually got so fed up with the line that we left to go get fast passes for our visit, which was not that expensive because the exchange rate, again, is in our favor, but just to get one ride on Quantum took way too long. But we finally rode it. The vehicles were super tight and there was an excessive amount of restraints, but it was awesome. My personal favorite roller coaster here in Bogota and by far the best Zyklon Galaxy I've ever ridden. It's very dark in there. A purple LED strip illuminates the lift hill and there's a bunch of stars and planets inside. We jokingly called it Colombian Space Mountain. And for a small park in South America, they honestly did a great job with this. Aside from the roller coasters, they do have a couple good flat rides. This includes an almost 200-foot tall drop tower. It's a shot and drop, like very legit, really popular ride here. Unfortunately, we did not get to ride it though because every time we went over to it, it was closed. It was having a lot of technical issues. Their Starflyer gave great views of the city, and they have an air race, which was a big spectacle right in the center of the park for everyone to see. The park is also home to a sky coaster, but like most sky coasters, this one is, of course, an upcharge. We did not do it. We also did not do the log flume that is right next door because it looked to be an absolute soaker. I love a good log flume, but everyone that was coming off this attraction was drenched from head to toe. But that was another very popular ride here. We noticed a lot of kids at this park. I think they were school groups. Not sure if it's always like that or we just happen to go on an especially busy day, but that definitely limited the attractions that we were able to do with the time that we had at the park. But honestly, I just enjoyed walking around this place. The atmosphere is so much better than Salitre Magico. It's not even close. They actually put like theming in place. Some of it though is a little interesting. We noticed this massive snake statue with a naked woman under it. Here's an entire themed area around a tribal people and their huts. Here's some large fruit and vegetables posing next to a food stand. And we also saw some pretty elaborate artwork on some of the walls around the park. When we got to the back of the park, we found a bunch of random animals, like a zoo, as if it's a nature walkthrough. There were people horseback riding back there, totally unexpected. Probably the weirdest attraction we did at this park was called Black Hole Tunnel. It's like your typical spinning tunnel that you'd have in a haunted house, except here, there's a guide that's in the room with you, and he's like playing Simon Says, so he's telling you to do different things like put your hands in the air, lean to one side, now lean to the other. It was really weird, but it was popular with everyone. I think it just liked how that threw off their senses. That was pretty much it as far as Mundo Aventura. It felt like there was a lot more to do here than Salitre Magico, and it seemed like the public was in agreement that this is the better park because there were significantly more people here than Salitre Magico. Sure, Salitre Magico has more thrilling rides, but the atmosphere is just way better here. That being said, I question how repeatable this park is. Like, I think about if I was back in Bogota and I happened to be doing Draco the Flying Beast at Salitre Magico, would I visit Mundo Aventura again? Well, as much as I thought that this park was a lot nicer, I don't know that there was any single attraction there that I was like, wow, I just really want to get on that again. Like, I enjoyed Quantum, but I'm not dying to get back on it. To be honest, I'd be more likely to go sightseeing in Bogota than return to Mundo Aventura. So I think each park definitely has its pros and cons. I'd love to see something new and exciting at Mundo Aventura, although it definitely seems like they have less land to work with. So I question that they'd be able to fit in anything good or if they'd have the budget for it. But regardless, if you're a coaster enthusiast visiting Bogota, I do think you should visit both of these parks. It's really easy to do them both in a day. We just called a taxi to take us from one to the other. And even though they don't stack up to what a US theme park would look like, we still had a good time and made the most of it. So let me know down in the comments below what you think of these places, and if you're new to the channel, be sure to check out the Park Reviews playlist. It's full of amusement park reviews from places all across the world. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.